Elena Moore was the kind of woman people noticed the moment she entered a room, not because she demanded attention, but because attention followed her naturally. Detectives would later say that her smile felt disarming, almost comforting, which made it harder to accept that she was the last person seen with a man who never walked out alive. Daniel Hart trusted her completely, unaware that his final mistake was believing charm meant safety. By the time authorities understood who Elena truly was, the damage was already done, and a quiet, calculated crime had begun to unfold. She appeared to live a life that felt carefully polished, as if every detail had been chosen to impress the world around her. People described her as confident, warm, and effortlessly attractive. She knew how to listen, how to smile at the right time, and how to make others feel seen. Friends believed she was ambitious and harmless, someone who simply enjoyed attention. No one questioned her presence in any room, because she blended charm with familiarity so well that suspicion never had space to grow. Behind that polished image, her life was built on control. She watched people closely, learning their habits, weaknesses, and desires. Trust came easily to her because she offered comfort without asking for much in return. She understood that attraction was more than appearance. It was timing, tone, and patience. While others saw kindness, she saw opportunity. Every relationship became a quiet experiment, every connection a chance to gain something more. The night the businessman was found dead, the city woke to confusion and fear. He had been successful, cautious, and well-connected, not someone expected to become a victim. His apartment showed no signs of forced entry. There was no mess, no panic, and no obvious weapon. It was as if death had arrived calmly and left without a trace. Investigators quickly concluded the killer was someone familiar, someone welcomed inside. Her name was not mentioned in the early hours of the investigation. She attended gatherings, answered messages, and went about her routine as if nothing had changed. To those around her, she seemed untouched by the tragedy. What no one realized was that the perfect mask she wore had been practiced for years, and beneath it lived a mind capable of planning something far darker than anyone could imagine. The crime scene offered very little for investigators to work with, and that silence made the case unsettling from the start. The victim's body showed no defensive wounds, no bruises, and no signs of panic. His posture suggested he had been relaxed, perhaps even comfortable, when his life ended. The apartment remained tidy, valuable items untouched, and doors securely locked. Nothing pointed toward a break-in or an impulsive act of violence. It felt deliberate, calm, and disturbingly controlled. Security cameras from the building became the first real lead. Footage revealed a familiar face entering late at night, moving without hesitation, as though the space belonged to her. She did not hide her face or avoid the cameras. Hours later, she was seen leaving at a steady pace, her expression unchanged. There was no rush, no nervous glance behind her, and no sign of fear. Investigators noted how unusual this was for someone involved in a violent crime. When authorities reviewed phone records, they found frequent communication between her and the victim. Messages suggested trust and comfort, nothing aggressive or alarming. Friends confirmed that the victim had spoken positively about her. This only strengthened the theory that the killer was someone close, someone he never suspected. Despite the evidence placing her near the crime, her behavior raised doubts among officers. She continued her daily routine openly, attending social events and interacting with others as usual. There was no attempt to disappear or change her habits. Her calm confidence blurred the line between guilt and innocence. Some investigators wondered if they were chasing the wrong person, while others felt her lack of concern was itself a warning sign. As the case progressed, one thing became clear. Whoever committed the murder had planned every detail and never expected to lose control. When investigators finally brought her in for questioning, the atmosphere shifted in a way that was hard to explain. She did not appear nervous or defensive. Instead, she seemed comfortable, almost amused by the attention. Her posture was relaxed, her movements slow and confident, as if she believed the situation was already under her control. From the very beginning, she treated the process as a performance rather than an interrogation. She focused her attention carefully, observing reactions and adjusting her behavior with precision. She smiled often, maintained steady eye contact, and appeared deeply engaged in every question. Reports later noted how she subtly mirrored gestures and leaned forward at key moments, creating a sense of connection. Rather than answering quickly, she paused just long enough to appear thoughtful, giving the impression of honesty and cooperation. Her strategy was simple but dangerous. She believed attraction could soften judgment and confusion could replace suspicion. By presenting herself as approachable and confident, she hoped to blur professional boundaries. Investigators sensed the attempt, even if they could not immediately prove it. Some felt an unexplained discomfort, a sense that something about her friendliness did not align with the seriousness of the crime. As questioning continued, small inconsistencies began to appear. Timelines shifted slightly, details changed, and memories became selective. Each inconsistency alone seemed minor, almost forgettable. Together, they formed a pattern that could not be ignored. Her charm, once disarming, started to feel rehearsed and mechanical. Despite this, she remained convinced of her advantage. She left the room believing she had impressed those questioning her. What she did not realize was that her behavior had been documented carefully. Every pause, every glance, and every contradiction added another silent mark against her. As investigators widened the scope of their inquiry, her past began to draw more attention than she expected. What first appeared to be a normal history slowly revealed irregularities that could not be explained away. Former partners described sudden breakups that came without warning, followed by long periods of silence. Some had lost contact with her completely. Others spoke of financial confusion, unexplained transfers, and assets that vanished shortly after their relationships ended. Records showed she often moved cities shortly after these relationships collapsed. Each move looked reasonable on its own, but together they formed a trail that followed unresolved questions. In several locations, authorities found unsolved deaths or disappearances that shared subtle similarities. There were no direct links, no clear accusations, but the timing was unsettling. Each time trouble seemed close, she had already moved on. Financial documents revealed even more. She had gained money, property access, or business advantages soon after certain people exited her life. Investigators noticed how she positioned herself near individuals who were successful but emotionally vulnerable. The pattern suggested careful selection rather than coincidence. Her relationships were no longer viewed as romantic choices, but as calculated decisions. Witnesses described her as intense yet affectionate, offering constant attention before gradually pulling control toward herself. When relationships ended, the emotional fallout was severe, leaving others confused and drained. Investigators began to believe this emotional manipulation played a larger role in her crimes. What once looked like charm now appeared strategic. Each piece of her history added weight to the case, transforming isolated events into a disturbing narrative. The image of an innocent woman faded as her past aligned too closely with the present. Investigators realized they were no longer dealing with a single crime. Her confidence reached its peak just as the investigation quietly closed in around her. She believed the case was weakening, that the lack of direct witnesses and her controlled behavior had created enough doubt to protect her. This belief led her to relax, and that relaxation became her greatest weakness. While investigators maintained a calm distance, forensic teams revisited the crime scene with new technology and sharper focus. During a second sweep of the apartment, something small but significant was discovered. A mobile device had been overlooked during the initial search, hidden in a place too ordinary to seem suspicious. At first glance, it appeared inactive and damaged, but digital experts knew better. Inside the device was a record of movements, searches, and connections that painted a clear picture of intent. Location data placed her in the apartment longer than she had claimed. Deleted searches revealed careful planning, including information about substances, timing, and how to avoid detection. Attempts to erase this data only made it more obvious. Each recovered file contradicted her statements, tightening the timeline around her actions. The evidence did not stop there. The device connected her to earlier moments she thought were buried forever. Patterns emerged showing preparation that began days before the crime. What she believed was a perfect plan unraveled quickly once technology filled the gaps she had ignored. Investigators noted how her behavior changed once she sensed the shift. The confidence remained, but it carried strain. Small errors appeared in her routine, and her calm presence no longer felt natural. She had underestimated how much truth could survive deletion. In trying to control every outcome, she failed to consider the one thing she could not manipulate. The silent accuracy of digital evidence did not respond to charm or confidence. It only responded to facts. The mistake she made was not emotional or dramatic. When the case reached the courtroom, the public expected tension and emotion, but what unfolded felt colder than anyone imagined. She entered with the same controlled presence she had always relied on, appearing composed and self-assured. There was no visible fear, no hesitation, as if she believed the environment itself could be shaped by her confidence. Observers noted how she seemed more focused on maintaining an image than responding to the seriousness of the charges. As evidence was presented, the weight of the case became undeniable. Timelines aligned with precision, supported by digital records, financial trails, and expert analysis. Each detail reinforced the same conclusion, leaving little room for doubt. What once appeared as coincidence now formed a clear sequence of intention and action. The court watched as her carefully built version of events collapsed under factual consistency. Her behavior stood in sharp contrast to the evidence. Instead of adapting, she repeated familiar patterns, relying on appearance and presence rather than logic. This only deepened the divide between perception and reality. Analysts explained how such behavior often signaled a belief that control could still be regained, even when it was already lost. Experts broke down her methods with clarity, showing how manipulation had shaped her relationships and decisions over time. Psychological evaluations revealed a mindset driven by control rather than emotion, where people were viewed as tools instead of individuals. The jury listened as her actions were stripped of mystery and presented as calculated steps rather than impulsive mistakes. As the proceedings continued, the illusion she depended on faded completely. The room no longer responded to confidence or charm. It responded only to evidence. By the final day, it was clear that the strategy she trusted most had failed her. The court had not been swayed, distracted, or confused. As the trial progressed, attention shifted from the crime itself to the mind behind it. Specialists examined her behavior across years, not just weeks, searching for patterns that explained how she operated. Their findings revealed a personality shaped by calculation rather than impulse. Decisions were not driven by panic or desperation, but by a steady belief that outcomes could always be controlled if approached carefully enough. Evaluations showed that she experienced situations differently from most people. Emotional responses that normally act as limits, such as fear or guilt, appeared muted. Instead, frustration surfaced only when control slipped away. This explained her calm behavior during questioning and her confidence in the courtroom. To her, the justice system was another environment to manage, not a force to fear. Experts described how attraction became a functional tool in her thinking. It was not about affection or connection, but influence. By presenting herself as desirable and attentive, she believed she could guide decisions without confrontation. This strategy had worked repeatedly in her personal life, reinforcing the belief that it would work everywhere else. The idea that rules might override charm never fully registered with her. The court learned that this mindset prevented her from understanding consequences. She did not see laws as fixed boundaries, but as obstacles that could be bypassed with the right approach. This explained why she continued her familiar behaviors even as evidence mounted against her. She assumed that pressure would weaken others before it weakened her. By the time the evaluations were complete, her greatest misunderstanding was clear. She believed people, systems, and outcomes could all be shaped through performance. What she failed to recognize was that justice does not respond to influence. It responds to truth. The final decision arrived without spectacle, delivered calmly and without hesitation. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of the verdict settled over everyone present. She stood still, her expression unchanged, as if waiting for a different outcome that never came. The confidence that once defined her presence no longer carried meaning. It had become empty, unable to alter what was already decided. The sentence was severe and final, closing every path she believed she could manipulate. Years of careful control ended in a single moment. Observers noticed how her posture remained steady, but something behind it had shifted. The performance she relied on had reached its end, and there was no audience left to impress. The system she underestimated had worked exactly as designed. Outside the courtroom, the case echoed across media and public discussion. Analysts focused not only on the crime, but on the illusion that surrounded it. The story became a warning about how confidence and appearance can hide danger in plain sight. People questioned how many signs had been overlooked simply because she seemed trustworthy. For investigators, the case reinforced a hard lesson. Evidence does not need emotion to speak clearly. Quiet details, when connected, can reveal far more than dramatic moments. The small mistakes she dismissed proved more powerful than any strategy she used. As she was led away, there was no dramatic reaction, no final attempt to regain control. Only stillness remained. The life she built on influence and charm was replaced by routine and confinement. In the end, the truth did not arrive loudly or violently. It arrived patiently, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left for her to hide.